Hi guys, Mikey Boy here. I thought we'd talk a little bit about tracking today and the controllers, the headset, and how everything works together with the tracking. So, the reason I'm not recording this in my living room is because it's nighttime in Sweden, and when it's nighttime in Sweden there is no sun, and I am dependent on the sun to supply me with light to be able to record. So I don't have any light, it's pitch dark in my living room. Well, I do got lights, but you know, not good lights. So I'm currently sitting in my small little closet. So there is a lot of clothes here, which helps to get better sound quality. So that's nice. And also I have really good light in here, because this is usually the place where my girlfriend does her makeup. That is why there's a lot of makeup in these drawers. Really, oh goddamn. But anyways, really good light, really good sound, so I'm recording in here. Alright, I have figured out a few things about the tracking, which I don't think is that clear in other YouTubers' videos about the tracking and positioning of the sensors for the Oculus Rift. And I will go a little bit more into detail how they work, and how you can make them work better, and answer the question if you really need a third sensor. I currently only have two sensors. So Oculus officially supports 180-degree tracking with two sensors and two controllers. You can get 360 tracking according to Oculus, but this is experimental, and this is not like the official way of doing anything, but basically Oculus says you need 3 sensors, and they sell sensors, so you can buy a third sensor and you will get good tracking. So we will talk about why you get good tracking with 3 sensors and why you can't get good tracking with 2 sensors, and we will discuss if you actually can get good tracking with 2 sensors. Alright. One sensor can track your devices, like your headset and your controllers. That's not a problem. One sensor can track both controllers and your headset. But I think there is a limit to how much one sensor can track. So if it tracks both of your controllers and your headset, the precision of the tracking might get reduced somewhat. I have not noticed this at all, that the precision of the tracking is off. I haven't noticed that at all. So what I have noticed is occlusion, where in-game one of your hands like goes away and leaves the room. You know, you've probably experienced that. You know, you turn around, neither of your sensors can see you, and your hands start to wibbly wob all over the place. As I said, one sensor can track all of your devices, and one sensor will probably never need to track all of your devices, because as seeing you're standing up and you have your headset on and you have your sensors in some kind of different direction, if you try to make it 360 tracking, we're not talking about 180 tracking with your sensors on different sides here, we're talking about 360 tracking. So if you have them in some kind of opposite corners, both sensors are always going to see your headset, because you usually don't block your headset with your hands or something like that. You have your hands in front of you, you might have them up, but both of your sensors will probably 99% of the time see your headset. So that's good. That means that your headset will always have quality tracking. And it also reduces the stress on the sensors. What I mean by that is that one sensor will not by itself track all of your devices, because the other sensor will help with at least the head mount. So back to this one sensor. If one sensor can see both of your controllers, that sensor will be able to track them. You won't need another sensor to read both of your controllers. You won't need that, because one sensor will be able to register the movements. Occlusion appears when none of your sensors can see your devices. So basically, by putting up your sensors in different corners, you will get perfect 360 tracking. Because if you're faced one way, one of your sensors will see your controllers and both of your sensors will see your headsets. And if you're turned to the side where your sensors are to your sides, both sensor will see your headset and both of your sensors will see your controllers. And you know, if you turn this way, one sensor will see both of your controllers. So worst case scenario, only one sensor will see your controllers. And the reason that is bad is, as I said before, you might not get as perfect tracking, you know, as you would get if two sensors sees both of your controllers and your headset. But I haven't really noticed that the precision of the tracking have gone down at all, actually. So I don't know, it's maybe something from person to person. Maybe you will notice that the tracking is not as good if only one sensor sees your controllers. But you know, I've played a lot of VR games by now and I haven't noticed any precision drop. Only time I have experienced precision drop is when I used a faulty extension cables to one of my sensors, where I used a active 3.0 extension cable for one of the sensors, and that cable didn't really work, and the data that was transferred through the USB was really limited. So I noticed that the quality of the tracking went down like a lot. But with a good extension cable, I have never noticed that the precision has gone down. So if you place your sensors in different corners, you will be able to play most games without a problem. Most games. Now we're going into the problems with two sensor setups and why it might not work perfectly, and also a solution to that problem. As I said, if the camera now is one of the sensors, the sensors will be able to see both controllers. Like if I'm playing Robo Recall and I shoot like everything, the sensor will be able to see me. And if I am to the side, the other sensor on that side will be able to see one controller each. So that's not a problem, you know. You will get good 360 tracking with two controllers. But in some games like Pavlov VR, or I could imagine Onward, you're holding a rifle. And when you're holding a rifle, you hold it one hand like this and the other hand like this. And if you have one sensor behind you that doesn't see you, and you have one sensor that simulates to be the camera right now, and you're hiding one of the controllers with your other controller, you will get occlusion, where your hand gets away from you. So that is basically the only time you won't be getting good tracking with two sensors, when you're blocking your controller with your other controller, when you're facing only one sensor. And trust me, that can get irritating in games like Pablo VR, it actually can get quite serious from time to time, and if you're in a serious group with serious people and you play around in like search and destroy in Pablo VR, and your I will show you, if your controller does this, your gun in game does this, wah! So you will miss like everything. It can get really annoying in games like that. But as I said, in most games, two sensors will be more than enough for you. Okay, I actually have a solution to this problem. This is not a secret. This is actually really widespread. Everyone knows this, but maybe now you know why this is like it is. If you simply place both of your sensors in a high point, like your ceiling, the degree which the sensor sees you at will change, so it will look down on you. The degree will be more like this. The sensor will look down on you and see both controllers, even though you hold them in front of each other. Well, only time I guess that could be a problem if you point upwards, but if you point upwards, the sensor behind you will see that controller as well, so maybe that's not a problem. But it's really hard to put both of your sensors in your ceiling. You might live in an apartment like I do, and you might not be able to, screw things to your wall, because you're renting the apartment. So there's problems with tree sensors too, because if you're already living in a confined space and you don't have that large of a play area, you might not be able to place that third sensor anywhere. So to be clear, the reason you want a third sensor is to make sure that if you're facing one sensor and you're blocking your controller with your other hand or something like that, the controller at the side will still see you. So you will get more of angle where two, or in this case three sensors will be able to determine where your controllers are. The other thing you could do, if you can't place both of your sensors in your ceiling, you could try and place one of the sensors on your floor. Because if I block my controller with my hand, like this, but I have the sensor on the floor, the angle will be more like this. The sensor looks up on me, so I will be able to see my controller. In my experience, this is not as good, but might work for you. You always have to be in line of sight, and a third sensor helps you to get in the line of sight always. The last thing I want to talk about is extension cables. So I have tried a few different extension cables, and in my experience, active 3.0 extension cables are worthless. I don't know why. They should work, but they simply don't. The best way you can get extension cables is by using a 3.0 USB cable that is passive, but not longer than like 3 meters. I've heard and I've read that some people are able to use like 5-meter cables. I have not tried that, but I know that 3 meters work, and you will get a high data transfer, not a problem, with a 3.0 USB extension cable. So with that in mind, if you want to be able to mount your sensors in your ceiling to get good tracking with only 2 sensors, you will need extension cables. Imagine like this: if you place your computer in your corner of your room, you will maybe not even need a extension cables to one of the sensors, because it will go right up in the ceiling. Maybe you draw it a little bit to the side and then up in the ceiling, and maybe you need a shorter extension cable. But the other sensor, that's the problem, because if you have a play area that is maybe 2 meters wide, you will need to first have a extension cable that goes through your room to the other wall, up to the ceiling, So, and if you draw the extension cables right through your room, it will not be a problem, because your room is like maybe 2 meters diagonally, and then you're at the other wall, and you will just draw the extension cables up the wall and mount the sensor in the ceiling. Very good, very nice. But who wants a cable running across your floor? That's not good, you know? Because what if you trip on your cable? Maybe you have a mat over your cable, but still, you know, what if you trip on it? What if it breaks? You know, because the extension, the piece where you have the extension cable will probably be in the middle of the room. So if you step on that, it can both hurt and you might break it. So that's not a good idea. What you want to do is you want to draw the extension cable in the corner of your wall, you know, where you can hide it a little bit, and then up the wall. And that will take a lot of extension cable. So that's the problem. You can't really have a good long extension cable. Well, you can have a good long extension cables. I've read people having long good extension cables, but it's hard to find. So if you're settling with a, you know, a normal 3.0 passive extension cable that is like 3 meters long, you won't be able to draw it in the sides of your room and across your room and then up the ceiling, you know, because it won't be long enough. I don't actually know how you can both get a subtle, discrete setup where you don't have fucking cables all over your floor and still have normal extension cables. I have no solution for that. The only way is to find long extension cables where they are like 8 meters long, but I have not come across any good 3.0 extension cables in Sweden, at least. I have also used a 2.0 extension cables, which is like 2 meters long, and that was actually not a problem either. Of course, I want to go with the 3.0 extension cable to get that high data transfer, but still with the 2.0 extension cable it worked fine actually. To starters, try with your extension cables you have at home, which might be 2.0. Maybe they work fine. I think that was everything. If you guys have any inputs on tracking, if you want to share something in the comments, feel free to do that. I will answer all of your comments because I have like 5 followers, so I think I'll keep up. And if you wanna like this video, and if you wanna dislike it. And I'll see you next time. This will be a pain in the ass to edit, because I suck at English so much.